Oh, hello. Did you know it's 75 years since Victory in Europe Day, the end of the Second World War? Well, I've got a story from the East End of London, which happens to be where I grew up. Would you like to hear it? Then get comfy. My name's Jack, and I was 9.5 years old when on Sunday, 3rd of September 1939, I was listening to the radio with my mum and my dad, and the Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, announced that England was at war with Germany. We lived in Silvertown, really close to the paint factory. In fact, there were lots of factories at one end of the road and the docks at the other end. I'd asked my mum if I could be evacuated with my 6-year-old little sister, and she'd said, yes, it's a bit like going on holiday with your school friends and your teacher. We had to go quick because there was supposed to be bombing and gas raids from the first day. So, next morning, I got all dressed up in my nice clothes, and my mum packed my case. 1 pair of pyjamas, a change of underclothes, and a sandwich. Also, I slung my gas mask over my shoulder. There was another thing Mum got out. A brown label. It had my name on it, Jack, my date of birth, born in 1930. My address, I lived on Drew Road, had her name on it, and the school I went to, Drew Primary School. And she fastened it to my coat. And then we made our way to the railway station. Oh, it was so exciting. Normally, you had to be rich to go on holiday. Oh, me and my school friends, we all said goodbye to our parents. It wasn't a sad time. It was an adventure. I'd never been to the countryside before. As me and my mates were all waving from the train window, we started singing. Now I'm getting very fond of my gas mask, I declare. It hardly ever leaves my side. I sling it on my back and I take it everywhere. It even comes to bed at night. It's been a real good pal to me, I must confess, and helped me out of many a mess. By train I went for a very tiring ride. There wasn't any corridor outside, and when I felt the turning of the tide, well, I did what I could with my gas mask. Ooh, a-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Once the train stopped, we went to this big school field and we all lined up. And someone came round and checked my head for head lice. The cleanest children got chosen first. So I stood up as straight as I could with my shoulders back. In the end, me, my sister and this other boy got put together on a poultry and cider farm. Oh, we lived right close to a sandy beach, and our new foster parents had a gigantic Labrador. We loved our new home, but things were a bit different. They had these things called serviettes in rings on the table, and we had 2 baths a week. Whew. And our school, because we still had to go, was 1.5 miles up a steep hill. And sometimes this lady with a 3-wheeler car, she'd give 6 of us a lift to school. We used to wonder how on earth that car got up that hill with all our weight. And our school was really small. We had 2 classes in one hall. One class facing one way, the other class facing another. Sometimes it got really confusing. And hopscotch, oh, that was my favourite game. We played that all the time. And on Sundays, we got pocket money. We would all go down to the shop and we'd buy ourselves 6 sweets and a licorice stick. 1 sweet for each day, we'd line it all up. and a licorice stick for Sunday. But then we couldn't help ourselves. We would just eat them all up in one go. And Mum would visit us once a month. She brought us sweets too. And we'd gobble those up in one go too. Oh, really? Looking back, it was a different world. And a year or so later, there weren't that many bombing attacks in London. So come summer 1940, I was nearly 1 year older, at 10.5 years old. We went back home, back on the train, still sing the same song that we left with. By train I went for a very tiring ride. There wasn't any corridor outside, and when I felt the turning of the tide, well, I did what I could with my gas mask. You know what? We never used our gas masks once. Not once. The whole entire time we were in the countryside. So, I was back in East London with my mum and dad when on September 7th, 1940, 967 German and Italian fighters and bombers attacked London at 5 p.m. The ground shook from the noise. The East End was their target. Beckton Gasworks, the Woolwich Arsenal, even the docks, the Albert, Victoria, Millwall, West India. They dropped 600 tons of high explosives. Can you imagine how that sounded? After about an hour, it finally ended, and we got the signal of the all clear. And as we emerged from our shelters, dust and smoke filled our streets, and firemen were fighting fighters just in case the bombers came back and saw the fires as a guide. And they did. They came back for 76 days and nights. Thousands were killed and injured and made homeless. The Blitz, it was called. Life was just full of dirt, dust and smoke. We had no gas, no water, so there was no washing, no cooking, and you couldn't do a number 2 for days. By now, 6 fruit drops and a licorice stick seemed like a dream. It was weird how it affected all your senses. The smell of timber, the taste of dirt, the blackness of blackout, the glare of flares and blazing red and orange skies after a raid, the strangest smell of powdered brickwork off of fallen buildings. You know, you'd be walking down the street and you'd see a house sliced in half like it was cut with a knife or part of a comic strip. Upstairs, the floor would just jut out with a bed, a mattress and wardrobe. It looked like a doll's house. All this I would see every day on the way to my best mate Johnny's house, because we still went out to play like everything was normal. Hopscotch was still one of my favourite games, and we would carefully look for shrapnel from the yak shells. The nose caps, the bit at the top, they were the best currency for swapsies with my mates. And you know what I heard? I heard that London Zoo had to destroy all their poisonous snakes and insects in case they escaped. And the elephant had to be evacuated. Oh, one night on our way back, about 7 p.m, because we'd been watching this random impromptu baseball match in the park, I saw something I've never forgot. A well-dressed woman in a yellow beret left our local pub. Just before she turned left down the alleyway, she hung a red scarf around the lamppost. Me and Johnny watched with our mouths wide open as straight after a man came out, looked both ways, and then crossed the road in the opposite direction. It was so odd. When it looked clear, we took a close look at the scarf. Oh, it was well pretty. We took it and we sat down on the curb and we waited to see if we ever saw the pretty lady with the yellow beret ever again. She never came, and we got into lots of trouble for getting home so late. But I always used to dream They were secret agents, saving the world from this terrible war. There was another time that I'll never forget. This one night, the siren sounded. We went into our brick-built shelter. The bombs were falling and the force of one broke the latch on the door. I looked up and I could see through a hole the sky, and it was just filled with planes. After what seemed like ages, the police came and they told us that we had to get out quick as the paint factory was about to blow up. My dad ran off to check on his parents. Soon enough, the bombing eased, but then everyone was told we had to get out of Silvertown quick. So, me, my sister and my mum, we made our way to Woolwich Ferry. When we got there, it wasn't working. So we went down into the tunnel, but then it was full of people sheltering, so we couldn't get through. We went back up, and as we walked the streets, the factories were burning, the ships were on fire. By now, we had no chance of getting far away from Silvertown, so we just had to find some shelter, and everyone was taking in as many people as they could. Eventually, we found somewhere. We found some space, but we were packed like sardines. And the bombing went on and on throughout the whole night. The next morning, we went to our house, and it was just a pile of rubble. We asked the soldiers if they'd seen our dad, and they said that they found a man and a puppy. The puppy was supposed to be my birthday present for the next day. He's been sent down the hospital, said the soldier. My mum was told to board a bus with other Silvertown survivors to a school at a temporary shelter, but she refused. We went down to the hospital instead. Here, we were told that he was in theatre when the hospital was bombed, and it's likely that he was dead. My mum looked everywhere for him. Some of the dead were taken to East Ham Town Hall, but he wasn't there either. After some days, guess what? He came home to our grandparents' house. He just turned up with a puppy in his arms. And that school that we were supposed to go to for temporary shelter, it got hit by a landmine. It just felt like every single day was a game of luck. I remember the 8th of May, 1945. The day it was announced as victory across Europe. By then, I was nearly 16 years old. Lots of people went down to the town halls and the high streets, but me and my friend Johnny, we decided to go to the West End to see all the celebrations. It was packed, full of civilians and servicemen and women, and the cars were stuck in the streets because there were so many people, and everywhere you went, there was music playing. And the King and the Queen and the Prime Minister, they were waving from Buckingham Palace. You would just be hugging complete and total strangers. And every single person that you saw had a massive smile on their face. It was as if the world had gone mad with happiness and joy after 6 long years of war. Finally, we had won! And that, my friends, is the end of our story. Thank you for listening. Now, I know that you can't quite see the scars of destruction in East London today, but for the people that were affected, some of those sounds and smells will stay with them for as long as they live. They were brave kids then. A generation on, and today, we face another war, a deadly virus. But kids are brave, and you can adapt to anything you need to. So, stay safe and stay brave. And thanks for listening.